Naturally, if you look at the education data for women, it has been very decisive. Over the last 4-5 years, we've seen that more women per man are getting enrolled in all levels of education.
Wow.
What does that tell you? That women are staying in the education system for far longer. They are getting better educated with better educational outcomes than men are. And once they are out of that system, naturally in a services-led economy, they are going to be the most employable. If they are the most employable, they are going to get all the jobs and all the income will come to them.
Folks, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta and here's wishing a very happy new year to all of you. This is our first episode of 2025 and just like last year, the guests are the same. We have an extra guest actually. I have with me Saurabh Mukherjea, CIO, founder of Marcellus, and for the first time Nandita Rajhansa, economist and analyst. Nice combination. At Marcellus. Since it's a New Year special, we talk about big picture themes, no kya lagta hai stuff and all that in the New Year. And today, of course, Saurabh and Nandita are here to talk about their latest book, already a bestseller, not surprised with that. Behold the Leviathan. Saurabh, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me back.
To Paisa Vaisa, it's always great to have you here. Nandita, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. Both of you guys, thank you. Wishing both of you and everybody at Marcellus a very happy new year.
Happy New Year. By the way, this is my Paisa Vaisa hat trick.
Oh, nice.
So, तीसरी बार.
And we are starting the new year with you again, just like we did last year. I think the Nifty was up how much this year?
So if I keep coming, I think Nifty will keep going off. I think.
Oh, I don't think we should mess around with that then.
Thank you so much for having me too.
What's been your experience? I mean, economist and analyst and now author also. How are you dealing with so many things at the same time?
It's a struggle, to be very honest. But
and having a boss like Saurabh.
But it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you added the fun part. That stare from Saurabh kind of got you in there. But
मेरे को तो लगा था funny होना चाहिए. 24 hours of fun.
I'm sure it is. And you really should be looking at your second book because I have written a book with Saurabh and I can tell you that's been a whole lot of fun. Been 4 years to that. What a wonderful book that was. And I'm sure that this also, folks, if you've not got your copy, this is what it is. What is Leviathan, guys? Please, can you just help me out here? It's a Greek thing, right?
So Leviathan, before we put it on the title, we did Google it. And it's a sea serpent, biblical sea serpent, colossal sea serpent.
But
500 साल पहले, a British economist called Thomas Hobbes used the Leviathan for the first time to say that the government can be a Leviathan. And he was the first man to say government ambiguous cheese hai. Government can be a source of great prosperity, a source for good, a force for good. But a government, the state, can also be a destructive force. And Thomas Hobbes was the first man to say that the state or the government is a Leviathan. And we use Behold the Leviathan to refer to the evolution of the Indian state or government over the last 100 years as something which is awesome, tremendous, awe-inspiring, and hence Behold the Leviathan. And then subtext hai, the unusual rise of modern India, right? Jis prakar se India rise kiya hai is not something that even I would have predicted a decade ago, right? So, a decade ago, I wouldn't have ever imagined that women will have more money in the bank than men, right? Or that in typical AUM, typical assets under management of a woman investor in mutual funds would be more than that of a man.
Wow.
10 साल पहले सोचा नहीं था, which is why the unusual rise of modern India.
As the only woman among the three of us, do you have a point of view here?
So my point of view is largely, I agree with it. Obviously, data shows me something and then who am I to say no to it. But anecdotally also, we've been hearing about it, that women were better savers than men. And there were a lot of researches that were done beyond India. Obviously, there was no such formal data. But I think after Jandan and everything that happened in 2015-16 and a lot of the economy got formalized, these things started coming to the fore. And now what we are seeing is just the validation of the anecdotal evidence that we had from before.
Very interesting. So my first question is for Saurabh, but after that, once we jump into the book, please feel free to, to talk, cross-talk or whatever.
Sure.
Let's have a good time. Saurabh, congrats. 10 years of writing books. 10 years plus. If I remember correctly, Gurus of Chaos was 2014. Right? So now let me just list the books. Folks, if you don't, just have a look at Amazon and you'll see the books. 10 plus years and 7 books and counting. Gurus of Chaos, Unusual Billionaires, Coffee Can Investing, Victory Project, Diamonds in the Dust, Unfiltered, and your latest book.
खुद ही भूल जाता हूँ 7 किताब actually.
That's a sign of greatness, I guess. But
it's a sign of someone who can't stop writing.
I think that's a good thing. Almost all of them bestsellers. If Manish is listening into this show, I'm sure that he's sitting there very happy with that. How have you evolved as an author in these 10 years?
So I think all of us, right, we evolve as human beings, and then that reflects in our writing, whatever profession we are in, that reflects in our work. And when I first started writing, actually my first book was when I was in university. I needed to pay my way, and I wrote a book in college. I don't have the copyright for that. Somebody paid me a couple of £1,000 and they have the copyright. But initially, right, when you're a young writer, you're a young professional, you're very concerned about दूसरे लोग क्या सोचेंगे. What is the received wisdom on the subject? So Gurus of Chaos was, what is the received wisdom on asset management? And I spoke to some of the best fund managers India had, and they gave a very vivid narrative of their careers, which is why Gurus of Chaos I thought worked out as a book, and I learned a lot from it. But then as you get older, you realize that, hey, I need to focus on how I understand the world, and I need to put that in writing, not just because it'll make me happy, but it's also because the reader, Anupam Gupta, Nandita, the world outside, is only interested in reading my book if I have something new to say. कुछ ताज़ा होना चाहिए, कुछ innovative होना चाहिए, कुछ हटके होना चाहिए, right? And therefore, over time, as I've got older, I've realized दूसरे लोग जो सोचते हैं वो भी ठीक है. I'm happy to learn and listen. But if I'm going to write, I need to write about how I see the world. And वो थोड़ा prism change हुआ है, and you stop referencing the received wisdom at a point in time a little less, and you start thinking a little bit more, introspecting a little bit more on this point, on this subject, say India's evolution. मेरी क्या सोच है इस मुद्दे पे?
I'm pretty sure you've got your next book in mind. What keeps you writing? We live in a world where attention spans are like, I don't know,
shrinking.
Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, and people who are listening to this are already scrolling through 5 tabs. What keeps you writing?
I think 3 अलग-अलग चीज़ें अनुभव. First is through writing, I am able to build friendships, bonds, right? So आपके साथ किताब लिखी, victory project लिखी, whatever be the sales of the book, which ultimately turned out to be good. But when I wrote the book with you, I thought कोई पढ़ेगा नहीं किताब. But I wrote it because I wanted to explore a subject which was of great interest to me with you, right? मेरे को लगा आपकी भी सोच उस मुद्दे पे इंटरेस्टिंग है. मैंने सोचा अनुपम गुप्ता भी सोचेगा, मैं भी सोचूंगा, फिर कुछ मज़ा आएगा, right? Second reason is when you write a book, the pretext of the book helps you meet many interesting people. So आप और मैं जाके गुरचरण दास जी के साथ टाइम स्पेंड किए, मनीष सबरवाल जी के साथ टाइम स्पेंड किए, right? We met a whole bunch of very interesting people who subsequently became very good friends, right? Leaving aside the book, the relationships with those individuals also blossomed, and they added, I think, color, richness to my life. और तीसरा मुद्दा है, through writing, I think I'm able to hit upon new ways of thinking about the world. So I get to know you, I get to know the people featured in the book, but I also get to see the world from a new perspective, right? And that's how I try to grow as a human being. Otherwise, through the day-to-day जो काम होता है, right? I work in the stock market, we manage money for 5,000 people. It pays the bills, it's interesting, it's fulfilling, but it's very difficult to learn brand new concepts in the day job, right? Partly because the stress of the day job is quite intense. So at many levels, whilst I'm happy for our publisher, for Penguin, that the books sell, at many levels, I've stopped caring whether people read the book or not, whether it sells or not. I hope they do, because Penguin needs to make a return on all the effort that goes into putting a book like Behold the Leviathan together. But अब थोड़ा सा जिंदगी में वो वाला पॉइंट आ गया है कि अपने को जो अच्छा लगे वही लिखने का है.
Wonderful. What a creative high that is. Nandita, your first book, already a bestseller. What was the experience of writing like for you? And will you also keep writing like Saurabh? Because I love the work that he does. I really like this book. I'm sure that you've got some more interesting ideas coming up.
Yeah. So to your first question, obviously it was such a whirlwind. Honestly, doing 3 different things at one time, it takes away most of your time. And I was also appearing for my CFA level 3 examination, which I passed. So
Congratulations.
All's well that ends well.
You made us very happy.
You've taken the charter also, right? Because
Yes.
these guys, I could just not even pass CFA level 1. And I'm talking of the year 2000, okay? वहीं पे मैंने बोल दिया बस हो गया मेरे से. I have a morbid fear of academics, but enough about me. Go on,
No,
please.
so I mean, beyond a point, it doesn't add so much value. It's just to get your basics right. I come from a non-finance background, so that's why it made sense for me to do it. If you're already a CA or if you already know all these things, then there's not much of a value add there. But I did it because, again, non-finance background. But yeah, having said that, there were a lot of things that I was doing all together at a time. So honestly, no time to think about what's the kind of work and the effect that it's having. It's just that एक chapter के बाद एक लिखो and just send it to the publisher. By the time I was done with my exam, the book was already, it had gone to the publisher.
As you can
the
see,
first
life in
draft.
Marcellus is fairly relaxed. We pass exams, we manage money, we write
You
books.
told her to write a book when she's giving level 3. I mean, that's...
But अब क्या करें मतलब
What can I say?
No, but see, that was a very fun experience. Now I can say that in retrospect because in hindsight, everyone is wiser.
study leave मिला.
I had a tough time working in the organization I used to work 20 years ago and write level 1, and I got... no, but that speaks, that's good on you, isn't it?
Yes, so it was fantastic, and I think that's how it should be because you can't sort of keep dwelling on whatever you've done. You have to move ahead and you have to keep doing newer things. Upon writing, about the writing part that you just mentioned, definitely, I think it's a bug. I mean, once you get into writing, it's very difficult to sort of pull away from it and not write again. So definitely, I look forward to writing more books with Saurabh and beyond that also by myself. But yes, so there's no other way, I think. Once you write it,
No, I think
can't
all
escape.
seriousness, Nandita writes exceptionally well. So for whether it's for an economist or for a CA or a CFA, typically for most people to write at a really good standard, you evolve through your first 5-10 years of professional life. फिर आप अच्छा लिखना शुरू करते हो. मेरी तो खूब पिटाई हुई मेरे 5-10 साल पहले 5 साल नौकरी में अलग वेरियस प्लेसेस आई वर्कड इन बट पिट के फिर मैं सीखा हाउ टू राइट वेल राइट इन हर केस courtesy her education her innate talents she writes really well which is why I thought it'll be great to get her to work with me on this project and she's one of the rare people तो उनको साथ उसके साथ बैठो go through a stream of thought and 24 hours later that stream of thought has become a coherent narrative. That's a very rare skill. So I'm very glad she has it and I hope she hones it.
I'll throw this at you first, and then Saurabh, you can add in your thoughts. What drove you to write this book, and who is this book for? Right, because the great Indian story is something that's been a theme globally for quite some time. Whether you take Naipaul or you take whoever, there's always been this fascination for an Indian novel. This is very different. It's about the economic rise, and that also, as you've called it, unusual rise of modern India. So what was what drove you to write this book, and who is it for?
Right. So I'll give you a fair bit of background. I did my bachelor's in economics from Fergusson College in Pune. And whilst I was doing that, I was fortunate enough to be able to attend a lot of events that the college used to conduct, as well as there was Gokhale Institute right next to our campus. So there were a lot of events that used to happen there as well. And all these luminaries, economists, people from the banking profession, everyone used to come and speak on a whole host of things. And all throughout those talks, having read a lot of non-fiction books throughout my academic career, what I came across was that there was no coherent or balanced view on India per se. It was very polarized. Either someone was all praise for it and did not look at the not so enduring parts of the rise of India, or there were people who were completely dejected and said that इस देश का तो कुछ हो नहीं सकता है. So that used to jar me a lot. That used to give me a lot of anxiety. Why is it like that? Why can't people have a balanced view? And then when Saurabh came up with this idea, and we also used to travel throughout the country, and we realized that it's not all gloomy and as it is usually portrayed to be. Everything is working out fine. It's a free market economy. It's a bustling economy, and someone needs to put this point of view out there that there can't be just one narrative that is just linear. It has to be multifaceted. India is a multifaceted country. And to do that justice to the country and its rise, I thought this was a book. So this is for everyone and anyone who wishes to understand how India has risen. It's not a linear rise. It's not all good. It's not all bad. There's a balance in between. And you need to understand the duality of that whole rise. And that's why we've written this book.
Yeah. So, Saurabh, as someone who's worked now on both sides of the capital markets, I've worked only on one side, on the sell side. You're someone who's, either been used to writing the India story or hearing from others, India is great and this sector and that sector and all that. What was your motivation to jump into this topic that a lot of people think they already know? Okay. And obviously, as your book throws up, we don't really know much of it.
So I think, the mental model to use is the Indian cricket team. Right? If you ask all of us, we'll be able to say that we know just as well as the Indian selectors, perhaps even better, what the team for the next test match against, say, Australia will be. Right? Sabki soch hogi, and all of us will have very justifiable reasons. This is my starting 11 against Australia at the next test match. Right? Waisa soch hoga. But as we will admit in our moments of humility, whenever those might be, that we actually don't know that much about cricket, right? Because just to use one facet of it, 105 किलोमीटर के ऊपर 105 किलोमीटर के ऊपर बॉल दिखती तक नहीं है ordinary individuals को. So forget Jasprit Bumrah speed. Even a medium pacer in international cricket, हमको बॉल दिखेगी तक नहीं.
Okay.
But हम लोग, we believe in us, in our moments of great confidence that we can select the Indian cricket team, right? Therefore, much like the ordinary individual believes they know everything about cricket and can select the team, but actually their ability to understand cricket at a reasonably advanced level, right? Even first class cricket actually is pretty high standard, वो नहीं है. I think कुछ हद तक economy के क्षेत्र में भी same apply करता है. And yet, whereas in cricket, I don't have to select the Indian cricket team. There are far better qualified people. With regards to the economy, both as a householder, as a family man, I have to make decisions, economic decisions about our future. As an investor, I have to make economic decisions or financial decisions about our portfolios. And whenever I'm asked to opine on that subject, I have to say something useful, right? So I found it very interesting. See, Indian cricket के बारे में कोई पूछे मैं बकवास तो कर दूंगा, but thankfully it won't have a bearing on India's fortunes on the cricket field.
Yeah.
But agar मैं similarly I vented forth on the Indian economy without actually knowing what was happening, the consequences are very damaging. And we see a lot of that. We see people who have no locus standi on the economy, neither trained as economists nor have access to enormous amount of perspective on the economy, but they hold forth. They hold forth with full conviction about the economy. And what happens is many of us assimilate that nonsense in our brains over a course of time. So I said there must be a better way to do this. Right? Rather than absorbing the nonsense, right? Let's go and see the world and understand it as it is. So for example, one of the points of view in the book is that every country in its development path up to $10,000 per capita income, we हम 2,500 पे इंडिया के लोग, $10,000 तक inequality बढ़ती है. And we further explain that in any free market construct or any competitive construct, such as Wimbledon, you're going to get the winner taking 100x, 200x, whatever the loser gets.
Or the first round guy who's losing in the first
हाँ
round.
जी, the first round पे जो हारेगा Wimbledon में, उसको उसका 150th, 100th मिलेगा champion का, right? That's how the tournament payoffs are constructed, and similarly in an economy, right? Now, if I believe there's something unfair, unjust, and I start jumping up and down and I say policy intervention करो boss इस पे, जिससे ये disparity reduces, then I'm sort of fighting the force of nature for no good reason, because the economy will keep ripping apart, keep ripping that gap apart, and I'm urging the policymaker to keep putting band-aid on that, right? So these sorts of perspectives, which often come from well-intentioned people, right? I'm not saying the people who hold forth on the economy without actually knowing what's going on. I'm not saying they have any malafide intention. Just that they haven't appreciated the realities of our country and the reality of broader development experience of other emerging markets. So that's what led me to say, यार लिखते हैं इसके ऊपर. Maybe nobody will read it. Maybe nobody cares. But hey, if that's the point of view, तो फिर तो सुबह no point getting out of bed. If you believe that there is a gap in people's understanding of the Indian economy and you believe you have something useful to say, then it behooves you to put that point of view forward, and hopefully someone somewhere will benefit from it. So decision makers, whether you're a householder, you're a CEO, you're a fund manager, you're a not-for-profit, hopefully आपको फायदा होगा. You'll benefit from reading this book.
Yeah. Nandita, I want to actually, build upon this discussion here about how what Saurabh said, and I'm sure that you also have done your work on that between 2,500 per capita to 10,000 per capita, like 4 times increase, this inequality or K-shaped or whatever name you want to give it, because these days you like to give a lot of tags for people to understand very quickly. So is it a feature or a bug? Till now, a lot of people have been protesting, like Saurabh said, that nahi, this is wrong. This is
Anyay
wrong.
hai, anyay hai.
But if this is the way things are, then won't that at some level create some kind of unrest? And is that, what do you think about that?
Yes, it will, but that's the free nature of a free market economy. I mean, if you want to get somewhere, if you need to have that kind of growth that will take us to a 5, 10, 20 trillion dollar economy, this is the path that we need to take. My macroeconomics professor used to often say this in the class, that when you look at macroeconomics and you try to study it, a lot of people will tell you कि ये curve यहाँ shift हो जाता है आराम से, this is how the equilibrium will be achieved. But in real life, it is often not like that. I mean, it's a very bloody process. It is a painful process to get to that point, and inequality will increase. But that's the nature of the free market economy. If you take any large economy in the world, if you look at South Korea, if you look at even the United States, they had to go through this period of rising inequality, and only after a certain point did that prosperity become shared. So
and
it's
just motivating the political class to read the book. जैसे नंदिता समझा रही है और जैसे आपने tease out किया, if inequality is going to increase, and I think it's a guarantee inequality is going to increase, and you're an ambitious politician watching this podcast, read our book because it tells you आपके लिए vote back, truckloads of votes मिलेंगे if you make a very modest intervention, such as what we saw in Maharashtra, running up to the Maharashtra assembly elections. If we make a very modest intervention, very small sums of money, which help the poorest of the poor get access to the basics of life, will get you enormous political payoffs, right? Now, presumably, ambitious politicians want to move ahead in the world. Chote amounts of money, chota relief expenditures can give you enormous payoffs, and that's the sort of decision we are hoping will be motivated by reading the book, whether it's a political decision or a CEO का intervention saying, अगर ऐसा होगा inequality बढ़ेगी, I need to make a decisive call. Should I cater to the elite? Should I cater to the masses? Because बीच में कुछ खास रहेगा नहीं, right? The middle class will, I think, gradually become a myth over the next decade or so.
Believer in free market economies are quite brave. There are people, some of them from our backgrounds who write books about the death of capitalism and whatnot, whereas you think that, I'm with you in this. I obviously will always support free market economies and liberal economies, but think that's a dying breed.
I mean, the largest stock markets in the world are US and in India, and
not largest, the best compounding, best performing.
Best performing stock markets in the world are US and India, and both are free market economies. And look at the kind of wealth that they've made. I mean, I'm a numbers person. I can see money there, and I'm definitely going to be a proponent of free market economy.
Saurabh, what do you think? Free markets?
देखिए,
democracy and capitalism haven't delivered.
हमारे देश के the नेता has to intervene to justify his existence. The netas, political class, has to intervene to both justify the existence to the electorate. Right? It is but natural that in a democracy, if you've been elected, कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा ना आपको, नहीं तो आप justify कैसे करोगे? But the core of the Indian business class, the entrepreneurial class, remains highly capitalistic, and post 1991. As we argue in the book, as we explain in chapter 2 of the book, post 1991, India's ascendancy has been driven by that. In fact, one of the most fascinating aspects, Anupam, is no other emerging market, not even China, and not even Japan in its pomp. Japan ka pomp tha 50s, 60s, 70s,
Post-World War.
Post-World War. Not even Japan in its pomp, not even China has been able to achieve this sort of economic vibrancy. So if you measure economic vibrancy by over 10, over 20, over 30 years, how much can you compound wealth? Then the only country which can hold a candle to India, the only country we've shown in chapter 2 of the book, which can hold a candle to India is the United States.
Wow.
Right? And therefore chaotic, highly contested free market democracies, contestation for political power, contestation for economic power. Har roz marpeet, right? Economic marpeet, political marpeet. That's the way to prosperity, and that's that chaos, it's that contestation which creates prosperity, rather than sukh shanti se hum log.
In fact, India and US, if you look at the combined market capitalization of these two countries, they account for 65% of the world's market cap.
No, not market cap, wealth creation. So the incremental wealth creation of the last 10 years, incremental wealth creation, 2/3 in दोनों देशों से आई है.
I like the fact that you start the book, the preface literally takes 3 very interesting concepts which go against what the popular narrative on both sides of the pole, by the way, and puts them in perspective, okay? Like, first, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, okay? Second, winners and losers. And the third, which I think doesn't even get talked about a lot, is interplay of social and economic change. Your contention, you start the book by saying that all discourses about India ignore these 3 things. And you've been talking repeatedly about that. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. What is this 2 steps forward, 1 step back? Like, we seem to make a lot of progress, but it comes at the cost of something.
So let me talk about the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'll request, we already discussed the winners and losers. I'll request Nandita to discuss the interplay. Because the interplay, I think, is riveting.
Social and economic, right?
वो fabric का interplay incredible है. So basically, let's think of the economy as a any free market economy will have a business cycle. तो business cycle मतलब ऊपर भी जाओगे आप, नीचे भी आओगे. So for example, in the post-COVID era, FY 22, 23, 24, 3 years, good years for the economy. Economy grew at 12-13% nominal. Corporate earnings grew at 20% plus. Great years, right? Stock market partied, a lot of people got rich. But you can't have a free market economy without the good times then receding. So we've entered the niche wala phase of the cycle. Last couple of quarters earnings have been very weak. Stock market, corporate earnings have been very weak, and I think we now go through a standard economic down cycle. But in the media, this will be played up as some sort of mega issue, right? कि बहुत भयंकर पंगा आ गया है, economy में earnings growth 0 हो गई है. But that is the economic cycle, and those who are the Cassandras out there will say, अब देखो, this is now proof कि घंटी बज गई है economy की, and they'll make a meal out of it, right? There'll be all sorts of op-eds written in knowledgeable publications saying the fact that the economy has entered a down cycle is proof that something fundamentally is screwed in the Indian economy. So when the good times are good, we will hype it up. India's story, कुछ structural change आ गया है. When it turns around, natural cycle, we will hype it up the other way. I think both types of hype are dangerous because it gets people excited when they least need to be excited and gets them depressed when they least need to be depressed. So अगर वो समझ जाए कोई इंसान कि एक फ्री मार्केट इकोनॉमी 3-4 साल अच्छा करती है, 1-2 साल पिटाई होती है, फिर 3-4 साल अच्छा करती है, it becomes decision making both in corporate life and in investment life becomes far easier.
Any thoughts?
Yeah. So on the social and economic change interplay, so I will touch upon a subject which is very close to my heart. It's also in the book. It features very prominently in the book. And this is something that I've been passionate about since my college days also. It's the rise of Indian women. So honestly, I did not think that the Indian women are rising until I started researching this book and until we started traveling across the country and getting that narrative in. But the broader point is, if we are saying that women today have more money in their bank accounts and we are saying that women are getting employed more, they are more educated than their fellow men, what it really signals is that there is a profound social change that is underplaying. It is probably under the covers. You can't see it, but it's happening. Because if women have most of the money, that means they have the financial power. They have the power to decide what kind of consumption will take place in the household. That gives them a lot of agency, which is a very remarkable shift. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was not the case. The men used to hold all the money in the household. They used to make that decision. And that has great ramifications for a country like India, for all the sectors that cater to women or are the sectors that cater to children, because that's the kind of consumption that they're going to do. That's the kind of investment that they're going to do. So that social change and economic change interplay is quite profound. It can't be measured per se only by numbers. You have to understand the underlying change, the narrative. Sociology plays a very important role over there. So it's understanding numbers as well as the narrative together.
दिलचस्प बात क्या है कि agency for women is coming from the free market,
that's what
not from civil society.
The agency part is something
कोई NGO के चिल्लाने से agency प्राप्त नहीं हो रही, because women are going into the job market, earning पैसा, having financial muscle, they can dictate terms at home, right? तो बहुत दिलचस्प लगा मेरे को जब वो दिमाग में ये बात when we got it, we internalized it. We said, this is remarkable, yeah. Often women are setting up chota companies using the India stack to get paid. And that's giving them, the chota companies is giving them income, which is giving them authority at home, which is getting them agency. So normal सोच क्या है कि कोई एक नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट सेक्टर होगा, वो सोशल चेंज करेंगे, उससे एजेंसी आएगा. बट मेरे ख्याल से, एंड दोज हु आर वाचिंग फील फ्री टू कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट अस, free market is conferring agency on Indian women.
This trend is here to stay.
This trend is here.
We are still going to see a lot of it play out in ways that we can't
So
anticipate.
naturally, if you look at the education data for women, it has been very decisive. Over the last 4-5 years, we've seen that more women per man are getting enrolled in all levels of education.
Wow.
What does that tell you? That women are staying in the education system for far longer. They are getting better educated with better educational outcomes than men are. And once they are out of that system, naturally in a services-led economy, they are going to be the most employable. If they are the most employable, they are going to get all the jobs and all the income will come to them.
So काफ़ी दिलचस्प, yesterday we were flying back from Bangalore. तो वहाँ पे कॉफ़ी ले रहे थे. And the lady
Terminal
at the
1 or Terminal 2?
Terminal 1. Terminal 1 पे कॉफ़ी ले रहे थे हम.
Hatti coffee, I'm sure.
Something like that, yeah. Anupam's on the money, yeah. So we were watching the body language of the lady at the till. So normally superficial लगा कि वो lady at the till है और 2-3 बंदे काम कर रहे हैं. Then we realized she's also the boss of the दुकान, right? Okay. She's the boss of the दुकान, and उसका जो उसका get up, उसका body language, उसका sense of authority, and the way she was ordering the men around, I think told its own story, right? And I've seen this historically in Northeast India, जहाँ पे matriarchal society है. In Northeast India, the woman runs the show, the man sort of runs around serving the customers. But ये Bangalore में बहुत interesting लगा रहा है. The sense of authority that lady brought to the shop, and you could see that alpha female was going to rise in the world, right? So नंदिता को बोल रहा था, ये लेडी देखना 5 साल बाद ये प्रॉपर रेस्टोरेंट चलाएगी या बिजनेस चलाएगी, बिकॉज द कॉन्फिडेंस एंड द स्पीड एट विच दैट शॉप वाज मूविंग, राइट? कॉफ़ी का ऑर्डर लो, वहाँ पे बंदा फटाफट, शी वुड जस्ट लुक एट द फेलो एंड वो सर्व कर रहा था. सो दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग इज गोना बी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ न्यू इंडिया.
Very lapata ladies feel to it, right? And look at that. That's our entry to the Oscars. Who knows? Okay, 2 questions before we go into the break. Saurabh, this is one of the favorite parts of my book. Something you spoke about when you were here last year, the octopus families and how networks, which road network, internet network, financial network, the jam thing and all that, drove the rise of a new elite. You think this is going to continue? And the more interesting part that I found, which you've obviously taken from data, that Nifty might, the Nifty is full of non-IIT-IIM people now, leaders, right? Now, data shows that. 20 years ago, where you would have the IIT-IIM crowd coming up. You think that's going to continue, right? Because I still see the startups are still full of that.
खत्म हो जाएगी story. Education credentialing is yesterday's story, right? So बहुत powerful चीज़ है. Educational credential, मतलब credentialing through formal qualifications, right? Whether it's university का या कोई trade body का ठप्पा, उसकी अहमियत I think धीरे धीरे खत्म हो जाएगी. In a way, we already begun that, as you said, IIT-IIM and overseas Ivy League type लोग already in a minority in the Nifty boardrooms. Increasingly, when you speak to VCs, they say we actively look for people who don't seek education credentialing. Because जो इंसान education credentialing ढूंढता है, उसकी सोच थोड़ी conventional है, थोड़ी safety hugging वाली सोच है, कि एक मेरे को ठप्पा मिल जाए कहीं का, फिर तो बॉस लाइफ में एक नेट बन गया, राइट? वैसी सोच VC को नहीं चाहिए. The VCs are looking for free thinkers who really don't have any regard for conventional norms in the way of doing things, right? So there's an even broader disruption coming. Leaving aside VCs and whatever they are thinking, अगर आप सोचो, right, large companies in the years to come will employ increasingly few people. Large companies, courtesy AI, courtesy robotization, for say every 10% of earnings growth, they'll probably grow their headcount by 1%. The need for growing headcount to grow profits will be increasingly diminished, courtesy robotization, automation, and the rise of AI. So therefore, by definition, given that we're a very young country, 28 की median age है, most Indians will have to seek employment outside a large company. So if you're, just to take an example, 80 million Indians earn a living on YouTube. उसमें से I think top 1 million earn a pretty good living, right? तो अगर आप YouTube पे हो, मानिए आप influencer हो, podcaster हो, द जनता इज लीस्ट इंटरेस्टेड कौन से कॉलेज में तेरे को कितने नंबर मिले हैं. द जनता इज इंटरेस्टेड बॉस तेरे पास कुछ है क्या मेरे को दिखाने के लिए, विच कीप्स मी हुक्ड ऑन टू योर यूट्यूब चैनल और योर podcast. Similarly, if you're a person working on the dark web, right? From what we are hearing, more Indians are on the dark web than any other country. And increasingly, we are of the view that most of the coding on the dark web is done by Indians. Now, the last thing the person on the dark web who wants you to code for some site which will operate, which will do some illegal business, वो आप जानना नहीं चाहता आपके कौन से IIT या NIT से आपने इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग पास की. उसको जानना है कि तेरे को आता है क्या कोड करना, वेबसाइट बनाना. So we are entering a world, the world of gig jobs, the gig economy, where credentialing is of least interest to anybody. What people are interested in the gig economy, outside the large company, and I stress again, the bulk of employment in the next 10 years will come from chota companies and gig jobs. In that world, you have to stand on your own 2 feet, basis your capabilities and your ability to deliver dhanda on the table.
Very interesting. Nandita, rethinking the CFA, I mean, it's not exactly a affordable course, very expensive course. Which do you pay for?
Marcellus ने पैसा, Marcellus all
No,
employees.
only if you pass. I remember that.
हाँ, only if you pass.
See,
यार.
that's
मैं
what.
capitalist हूँ, क्या करूँ यार?
No, I'd given it back the level 1 fees for only
So all
paid.
employees who pass, हम पैसे भरते हैं, छुट्टी भी मिलती है. नंदिता को भी छुट्टी मिलती है.
That I agree with, yes, milti hai. But my broader point is I did the CFA for a different reason. It was not just for getting a credential, it was for making my understanding of financial concepts much stronger, given that I don't come from there.
Education
against
for
CFA,
learning.
I'm just-
So,
yeah,
so
yeah,
mental model है, are you doing education in terms of 2 तरीके के मॉडल है. आप आर्मी जा रहे हो,
Yeah.
फिटनेस युद्ध करना सीखोगे, या आप मॉडलिंग एजेंसी जा रहे हो. Modeling agency doesn't make pretty people prettier, no? It just gets them into a place where
Okay.
advertising agencies, where those who want to advertise can hire the model and pay him or her some money.
Yeah.
So अगर आप education कर रहे हो modeling agency की तरह, तो बस आपकी तो जिंदगी में पंगे होने वाले हैं.
So I want to move on and just kind of wrap up this first half of the episode with this peninsular India thing. Again, very very interesting, very surprising. As someone on the outside, I see it in cinema also. You have the Pushpas and all that,
Lovely.
which have taken
Very
over
interesting,
Bollywood or
yeah.
whatever, and it's that popular culture reflects what people think is reality. So this rise of peninsular India,
Lovely.
do you think this trend can reverse? Because again, I'm just sensing that if the north is like that far behind and the south is, even if it grows at a steady state without any major, policy and this and that, I don't know. What do you think is going to happen going forward?
So, I mean, we have to go to the depth of the problem that exists, and then we can get to the answer whether this can change or not. So, throughout our travels, and this is just a hypothesis, but what we have understood so far is that caste plays a very integral role in how business is also done in the north, which is not the case in South India. I mean, yes, caste is still important there. People are inherently very casteist. They care a lot about that in social life. But when it comes to business, it doesn't hold that much salience. You can still hire someone who's from a different caste and get your business done. That's largely the south of India. North India, your business gets hampered, it gets impeded because of the caste factor, which means that it is an inherently low trust society. Now, typically when you have a low trust society, by definition that cannot progress at a much faster rate. You have to overcome that mental block, you have to overcome that caste
So it creates
barriers.
transaction costs, right? Lack of trust creates transaction costs. Places like the NCR have overcome it for obvious reasons. The coming together of Indians from all parts of the country in the NCR has made it a very vibrant economy. But beyond the NCR, the rest of the north has had a tough time growing at a rapid rate, right? So NCR का आप देखो, नोएडा, गुड़गांव, हर जगह पे बूम चला है, 30 साल हो गए हैं. But उसके बाहर, it's been hard for North India to break out, and no amount of infrastructure has helped on that. In contrast, South में, whether it is Telangana, whether it is Andhra, whether it is pre-partition, post-partition, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, कौन सा CM आया, कौन सा CM गया, nobody has really lost too much sleep. Industry keeps progressing, infrastructure, education, high degree of law and order, and it's almost a second world economy today. Places like Telangana, last 7 साल में economy double हो गई है, right? So this is the fastest growing part of the world, whereas north पे आबादी बहुत है, but दूसरे पंगे हैं. So what we've ended up is a peninsular India as a quarter of the population, Anupam, and it's 2/3 of the GDP growth.
Quarter of the population and 2/3 of the GDP
तो
growth.
अगर आप गुजरात ऐड कर दो
Wow.
तो 3/4 Peninsular India plus Gujarat is 3
boy.
quarters. So this is the triumph of our economy, right? The world's fastest growing region. अगले दशक भी रहेगी. बाकी देश, which is 3/4 of the population, but 1/4 of the growth.
It's basically Europe-size kind of population that we're talking about.
So actually good point, right? So अगर आप सोचिए Germany, right? I think 100 million लोग हैं. वर्ल्ड का 3rd या 4th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी है. यूके 60-70 मिलियन लोग हैं. 5th या 6th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी. Peninsular India plus Gujarat will basically be that. Roughly 300 million people, America जितनी आबादी.
Correct.
And potentially 10-20 years hence an almost American-sized economy, right? तो कमाल की स्टोरी है. Good story Peninsular and Gujarat. North and East का थोड़ा सा सोचना पड़ेगा.
Nandita, let's look at what lies ahead, right? Now we know the shift of unorganized to organized. You're writing about tough times for SMEs. So this tough times for SMEs isn't good news, right? Because these are small-scale enterprises that employ a vast number of people whose livelihoods depend on that. So is this pain in the system inevitable, or can something be done about it?
Yes. So 2 layers to this. Firstly, yes, a free market economy will have some winners and losers, like we've already discussed about it. But what has happened in the last 10 years is something worth remarking on, and we have to go a bit deeper into it. It's a little nuanced. So we are seeing that on a broader level, obviously there are a few firms which are making most of the profits in the country. So around 17% of India's companies are making most of the profits in the country according to the income tax data. And they are growing the fastest, especially post-COVID. However, there is a nuance in that particular number. So within those around 70 to 80,000 companies, there are 7,000 companies which are doing far better than the rest of them.
Okay.
And within these 7,000, the first 1,000 are the largest enterprises, something like a Titan or something like a Bajaj Finance, all these bigger companies basically. These are not growing the fastest, interestingly. It's the next 6,000 which are growing the fastest. So we are seeing a democratization of profits within that very small cohort versus the larger set, obviously. And these 6,000 are rising. Now, this has happened courtesy Jandan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity coming into play, low-cost internet, also access to a lot of data, access to all sorts of UPI, basically payments, easier payment-making processes. All of these things have helped them.
Sure.
Now, what has happened is these people, these 6,000 companies are the smartest of them all. And these are the ones which are rising the fastest now. So in the new India, in the new economy, we reckon you have to be smart enough to be able to leverage all of these things, and that's the way you rise. If you can do that, that's classic free market economy, right? You have to use your power, you have to use all the things that have been given to you for your benefit to rise up to that level. And we think that there is a relatively small portion of companies which are actually doing it. Last 10 years was basically everyone in the smaller SME segment getting sort of banged up because of all the reforms that happened. GST happened, there was IBC, there were a lot of things. Exactly.
So सागर मंथन का लास्ट 10 साल का वेव था, उसमें SME मर गया, लघु उद्योग पिट गया. सागर मंथन का जो अगले लहर है is the 6,000 challengers. वो टॉप 7,000 में से 6,000 challengers going on hitting up the top 1,000 rulers, right? So creative destruction, the destruction piece is evident, but the creation piece is we are creating companies with profits between 50 to 500 crores, well-run companies who are now going to challenge the market leaders in our country over the next decade, and that'll be truly exciting to watch.
I'm going to take a quote from your book, right? Because you spoke of the challengers, right? The quote, in the years to come, the smaller challengers with their superior business models and greater operational efficiencies are likely to contest the rulers and seek to grab significant profit share from them. I mean, you guys, so I remember maybe 10 years ago when you were writing about how the way to make money in India was connections. You think that's become a little bit more meritocratic now, and that?
So जहाँ पे sectors which are unregulated, it's definitely so, right? Sectors where the free market economy is in full throttle, an extent of regulation is modest. Clearly, business model and competitive forces are at greater play. In regulated sectors, अभी भी setting की अहमियत थोड़ी बहुत है, but unregulated sectors, the rise of, so straightforward example would be the rise of QCOM. QCOM,
quick commerce, yeah.
So middle-aged guy like me, तो 2 साल पहले इसको पता भी नहीं था, मेरे को पता भी नहीं क्या. आज भी I understand it at a use case level, I hesitate to use it. A youngster like Nandita uses quick commerce, I think, every day of her life. So
Do you actually?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So किताब के लिए I think हम दिल्ली गए थे research करने के लिए. We got off at the airport. Nandita
Oh my God,
realized
don't tell me she ordered something at
she had
the
forgotten her hairband. तो वहीं पे कुछ दबाया फ़ोन पे, 5 मिनट में बंदा hairband लेके आ गया. Then with another,
that middle-aged club, please.
हाँ,
I'm the
you
member.
and I are, you and I. So another
Member
colleague,
of that. You
another
actually
colleague.
you did that.
Yeah, and
Crazy.
it's pretty convenient.
चलो at least hairband forgivable है. Another colleague of ours rocked up in a different city with me without socks. तो एयरपोर्ट बोलता है मेरे पास मोजे नहीं है. तो आई वाज थिंकिंग क्या करें यार ऐसे इंसान का. उसने क्यों कॉम किया, 5 मिनट में सॉक्स आ गई. ठीक है. नाउ इट इज़ व्हाट इट इज़. But to exemplify your point, in quick commerce we haven't yet had government intervention. Right? The kirana store owners are obviously shouting, but सरकार ने intervene नहीं किया है. And whatever Zomato का subsidiary Blinkit, Zepto, from what I'm hearing, Amazon भी घुसेगा, Flipkart भी घुसेगी, Jio भी घुसेगा. So it'll be a right royal competitive punch up. Right? Whatever emerges from that will be one of the most powerful features, in Indian retailing. And that's what I mean by Sagar Manthan. That's what I mean by a challenger. Now compare a QCOM ka distributed construct. Our research suggests, Anupam, already at the store level, at the dark store level, in the cities, QCOM is profitable. Right? At the dark store level in the cities, QCOM is profitable, and typical new store is breaking even in 3-4 months, right? Because consumers' behavior, Nandita's generation, they are the dominant generation in the country, right? Their behavior is changing so fast that दुकान में जाके सामान खरीदना is sounding like an antiquated idea. And I have to be honest, even I haven't been to the shops. I use old-fashioned commerce. या मैं फ़ोन करता हूँ. But I've forgotten the last time I went to a grocery store, right? Out of sheer loyalty to the local pharmacist, I go to his store once every 3-4 months, but वो भी धीरे धीरे मैं lazy हो रहा हूँ. Right? So as old habits die away, new disruptive forces rise, the old established retail construct is gonna be challenged in front of our eyes. And that's what I mean by the rise of new, more efficient challenger companies.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about superior business models and operational efficiencies, here we're talking of businesses that have got serious VC funding that probably the Kirana guy does not have access to.
Yes and no. So we've got examples. So for example, one of the companies we invested in a couple of years ago, it went up 70-80%. Therefore, we've exited now. Say Rainbow Hospitals. So it's a company set up by doctors in Hyderabad, pediatricians and obstetricians. And a typical multi-specialty hospital does all things for all people. Rainbow said we'll only focus on looking after the mother and the child, and we'll provide world-class care. This is owned by the doctor. Even today, the doctors own 75% of shares outstanding. Now they focused on South India because mothers work there. Mothers are earning a lot of money. Also, mothers are not only affluent; they're time-strapped, and therefore paying 1.5 lakh for childbirth in South India is no big deal, right? As a result, Rainbow is very profitable, and after the childbirth, they made sure that they do the pediatric care. So out of their, I think, 17 hospitals in a 5-kilometer radius, they set up spokes. So the pediatric care is also delivered. So highly profitable, set up 25% ROE, I think 2,500 beds, growing rapidly as female employment, high-powered female employment rises. The multi-specialty hospital was the ruler. The challenger is Rainbow. Rainbow is funded by the stock market, but it was started by doctors. I don't think they took on VC or PE investment.
Very interesting.
Right? They set it up and then took it public.
Right. Now, so folks, the book is Behold the Leviathan, and you can get many more ideas from that. Let's now, talk about some specific advice. He's talking about superior business models, great operational efficiencies, spirit of entrepreneurship. And there's a guy who's listening to all this, guy, girl, whoever. Now he's like, okay, I've listened to the entire episode. Now I want something of meaning for me. I want to start a business in India. You've gotten me excited. And I think that I fit the profile that you guys are talking about. Young, willing to take risk, probably has access to some capital in some way or the other. What's your advice individually? Okay, first Saurabh and then Nandita, to this young, man, woman, girl, whoever it is, who's starting off and wants to start his or her business. Okay, what's your advice to him or her?
So look, in the epilogue of the book, so last chapter के बाद epilogue में हमने AI, India stack and AI का पूरा interplay समझाया है, right? India stack is things like UPI, things like Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile, and then say FASTag, DigiLocker, ये सारा India stack है. We explained in that chapter, in the epilogue, how AI will interplay. So for example, training, skilling. There's enormous role for AI to play, right? For example, if say a Mizo girl, 17-year-old Mizo girl says, I want to study electrical engineering in Bangalore, but she doesn't have the money. I reckon somebody's going to create a kind of marketplace where she will say, I'm happy to do an internship for 3 years, where I work as an intern engineer in a manufacturing or a tech concern in Bangalore. In return, pay for my electrical engineering studies at an undergraduate level, right? There will be a provider who will match the Mizo girl's desire to study and her willingness to work as an intern at modest pay, much like articleship करते हैं ना आप CA वाले लोग, तो उसी का electrical engineering analog आएगा, and AI will intermediate, right? But for that the AI has to be trained, the bot has to be trained, जिसके लिए पैसे लगेंगे. For that the GPU burn, once the bot is trained, GPU burn होगा, उसके पैसे लगेंगे, and some प्रचार of the spreading the word of the service has to be rendered. So somebody out there who's listening will turn this into a for-profit business. Similarly on healthcare, right? Hypertension, diabetes is through the roof as we become as parts of India become a middle income country. Prosperity wale chronic diseases are on the rise. Many of those people are far from a hospital, right? Sure. Hospitals की beds की गिनती उतनी ज़्यादा बढ़ नहीं रही, doctors की बेहद shortage है. So somebody is going to create a for-profit AI doctor, the AI doctor gives basic care on well-established and well-understood chronic diseases,
sure,
right?
Sure.
So the last in the epilogue of the book, we provided a whole bunch of use cases which are waiting for enterprising Indian entrepreneurs to step in and deliver.
Yeah, wonderful. Anything to add?
So I think what I will say is that to adding what Saurabh has said is basically what to do going into the future. Mine is a more broader point. The book exemplifies change in India, constantly changing equilibrium that we are seeing in the country. So be mindful of that. Do not think that things that have worked in the past are always going to work in the future. And when you're designing your business models, whatever they may be, they have to be cognizant of this fact that basically things are changing at a rapid pace. You have to use technology and everything to your own leverage. You have to leverage it. But at the same time, do not think that this is the steady state equilibrium. The equilibrium is shifting every year.
Fantastic. So I can't let you go without asking about markets kya lagta hai. Okay, but let me try and wrap that in a more
sophisticated wrap,
sanitized way rather than ask you nifty targets and what's going to happen. What's your message to the to this entire bunch of mutual fund and SIP investors that have come in the last 10 years, and you've got an SIP book of some $3 billion. Every time it just keeps on increasing. 20 years ago, I think it was exactly zero. Now now it is this $3 billion per month, and apparently it's rising. People think it will just go on forever. And for the last 8-9 years, I don't think this market has seen a down year, at least calendar year wise. Last I checked, I don't think in recorded history has there been this long a stretch of positive returns. I'm sure that 1 or 2 years might be just 4% or something. Okay, and here we are now sitting at what's obviously, we've been talking about it, and you've also been speaking about it, that there are challenging times ahead. Let's kind of be real about that. Enough of all that. But that message doesn't seem to have percolated among a lot of people. They still extrapolate ki bhai stock market to 15% to dega hi dega. My retirement calculations are based on 15%, etc. If it happens, then great. You'll be happy. I'll be happy. There's no doubt about that. What's your message to everybody who has an SIP going, still believes in it, has some faith in equities in India, because it's a new thing for this massive generation? What's your message to them?
I think, look, I mean, the upward trajectory, the slope of the line, the economy, the stock market, the slope, the trend line will be upwards. But as I said, it's a free market economy. Uske utar chadav honge. My reading is we're in the niche wala part. We had 3 tremendous years, 4 if you count the first post-COVID year. 4 बढ़िया साल रहे हैं. पैसा बना है, stock market चली है. But I think we've clearly gone into the last 2 quarters have been weak for corporate earnings. I don't see any imminent revival for corporate earnings. I know there are people who believe this. कल सुबह ही फिर से कैपेक्स साइकिल शुरू हो जाएगा और परसों शाम तक तो EPS ग्रोथ बढ़ने लगेगी.
Okay.
एंड इसलिए बाय द डिप एंड सो ऑन. सो वो सब जिसको करने की इच्छा है कर सकता है. I think we'll see a cyclical downturn. And I don't think the government should be blamed. There'll inevitably be people who will write knowledgeable pieces saying सरकार को ये 5 चीज़ें करनी चाहिए. I'm not so sure there's any prompt policy intervention, and there shouldn't be. In a free market economy, you need to wax and wane. So if you've built a portfolio which has done well over the last 4 years, by all means keep building the portfolio, but brace yourself for a few tough quarters where earnings growth will be hard to deliver. एंड मोर स्पेसिफिकली आई थिंक अगर आपको दूसरे तरीके से सोचना है, आप प्रैक्टिकल इंसान हो, आपको ज्ञान नहीं चाहिए, आपको नंबर चाहिए. आप देखिए 4 साल पहले हमारे देश में 30 मिलियन रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स थे. डीमैट अकाउंट्स अगर सोचे 30 मिलियन थे. एज पर सेबी वी नाउ हैव 170 मिलियन डीमैट अकाउंट्स. नाउ सम पीपल विल हैव 2 अकाउंट्स, सो अस्यूम 100 मिलियन यूनिक इन्वेस्टर्स. पर इफ़ यू सी द इनकम टैक्स डेटा, केवल 20 मिलियन लोग पैसे भर रहे हैं इनकम टैक्स में. फाइलर्स 80 मिलियन है, बट पैसे भर रहे हैं केवल 20 मिलियन लोग. दैट मीन्स ओनली 20 मिलियन इंडियंस आर अर्निंग मोर दैन 6 लाख 5 लाख 6 लाख, जो भी बिल्कुल नीचे वाला थ्रेशोल्ड है. दैट मीन्स 80 मिलियन इंडियंस हार्डली हैव एनी इनकम, बट दे आर प्रॉम्प्टली primarily they have invested in the stock market. To my mind, it suggests a lot of these people who are playing in the stock market are doing so with borrowed money.
Wow.
Right? तो अगर borrowed money से आप मार्केट में खेल रहे हो, जब ऊपर जा रही है तब तो बल्ले बल्ले, जब 2-3 महीने नीचे जाएगी, रिमेंबर सिक्लिकल डाउनटर्न, 2-3 क्वार्टर तो छोड़ दीजिए, 2-3 महीने नीचे जाएगी, तो आप अपने बैंक को या अपने NBFC को जिससे पैसे लिए हैं या जिस ब्रोकर ने आपको मार्जिन फंडिंग दी है, आप क्या करोगे, मेरे को उतना ईजिली समझ नहीं आ रहा. विच इज़ वाई आई वुड से I think be circumspect at this juncture, given that just common sense suggests a lot of the people in the market are investing borrowed money.
But that's crazy. I mean, it just defies. I mean, I guess I've been too much on the outside to look at.
उसकी गलती नहीं है ना. We've had a lending ecosystem which hasn't had anybody else to lend to, right? Corporate lending तो ठप हो गई थी 8-9 साल पहले. At AQR and सब जो सब पंगा हुआ था 2014, 15, 16 में. तो कॉर्पोरेट लेंडिंग ठप है. सो द लेंडिंग इकोसिस्टम हैज़ बेंट ओवर बैकवर्ड्स टू लेंड मनी टू हूएवर इज. सो यू नो इफ यू गो टू दैट टर्मिनल 2 इन बॉम्बे, वो बंदा पीछे भागता है आपका क्रेडिट कार्ड लेके, राइट. सो दैट्स ऑलवेज अ डेंजरस साइन, राइट. आई लिव इन अ सबर्ब ऑफ बॉम्बे, आई डोंट लिव इन साउथ बॉम्बे, आई लिव इन अ सबर्ब ऑफ बॉम्बे, मॉडल सबर्ब. वहाँ पे भी बंदे सड़क पे खड़े खड़े क्रेडिट कार्ड बांट रहे हैं. एंड चलो 1 साल पहले बांट रहे थे, मैं समझ भी पाता था. आज मैं देखता हूँ क्रेडिट कार्ड की क्रेडिट क्वालिटी फट रही है. And published results, I can see credit quality is busted, and yet these fellows are doling out credit cards to passerbys at the airport or at the local जो गल्ला है मेरे घर के पास suburban Bombay में. So be circumspect थोड़ा सा.
Yeah, because there are 2 indicators that are both in different directions, right? You can't have an SIP book that's growing at this rate and unsecured lending that's also going up. Both are counterintuitive, you think so? I mean, because
so it is entirely possible that the SIP pool are Indians who have decent jobs or flourishing businesses, and they are feathering their nest for retirement. तो वो narrative भी जायज़ है कि जिसके पास अच्छी जॉब है और अच्छी SME है तो वो अपना retirement pot बना रहा है. But the income tax data suggests there is no more than 20 million such people.
Sure.
At most 20 million जिसके पास life sorted है. तो बाकी 80 मिलियन, एंड रिमेंबर आई एम कंजर्वेटिवली सेइंग बाकी 80 मिलियन, उन लोगों के पास पैसा कहाँ से आ रहा है. नाउ आउट ऑफ द 80 मिलियन, मे बी सम ऑफ देम आर really hardworking people just below the income tax threshold, and who are investing their hard-earned savings in the market. But I suspect a significant number are investing borrowed money in the stock market.
That's crazy. Nandita, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Saurabh, and I keep seeing these spends and the kind of behavior that people are exhibiting, partly because of social media, partly because of the signaling effect that it has, and the aspiration to live a better life. Having said that, this is not a healthy trend, obviously. Borrowing and doing expenditure which is not leading to economic gains or any productive growth is definitely a cause of concern for people like you and me, and as well as economists and the country. So yeah, I completely agree with Saurabh there. To the point where why they are doing this, there could be another reason that deposit rates in the country have been pretty low until the RBI started hiking rates. So there was really nothing else that people could do in terms of growing their savings. And in an environment where the jobs are scarce, you don't have a lot of avenues of earning and increasing your income, and you can see that you have to feed a lot of people. Inflation is running high. What do? Inflation beating returns are only found in stock markets, at least until now. So that's where people are naturally putting their money in.
Yeah. Money is going to chase returns for sure. Very somber mood, na Saurabh? I mean, last year when we started the year, we were like octopus families and how this small bunch of people are enjoying a lot of wealth. And now here we are talking about the very logical and maybe as a consequence of the upcycle, now we're looking at the down cycle. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. So sobering down, you would think.
So you have to take the smooth with the rough
Yeah.
and stay balanced throughout, which is what I think you've done as a podcaster, which is what we aspire to do as writers. But we're all human beings. So जब roller coaster ऊपर जाती है तो मज़ा आता है, फिर जब roller coaster नीचे आती है butterflies in the stomach होता है.
Brace for impact. My God, I didn't think that I would have to wrap up this episode on a sober note. But folks, the book, as always, Behold the Leviathan, Saurabh Mukherjea, Nandita Rajhansa of Marcellus. My last question.
Your mic went off.
Hey,
Oh yeah, I knocked the book with this. Okay. I'll just record it again.
अरे क्या बात है, क्या spot किया फटाक से.
Yeah, I mean, he's the audio engineer, right? So, is it back? Testing.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, coming back in 3, 2, 1. Right, somber note to wrap up this episode. The book Behold the Leviathan, authors Saurabh Mukherjea, Nandita Rajhansa of Marcellus. As usual, our new episode, which we will not wrap without answering our standard question. So, I love asking this. Of all the guests that I have, I just love asking this question from you. What book are you reading? I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of them. Recommendations for our listeners.
So I'm reading The Meritocracy Trap by Daniel Markovits.
Oh, you finally... Is this the first or second time you're reading it? Because it's a pretty old... I mean...
So 2019 की किताब है. हमने 3 longs 3 shorts में डाली थी. 3 longs. I remember writing it up for a Sunday
it's there
morning.
in my Kindle somewhere. I have
Right?
not got around to reading
फिर से
it.
पढ़ रहा हूँ because मेरे ख्याल से Indian society के लिए Meritocracy Trap is very applicable. Right?
Summarize, because I love this book.
So it's a book written in the American context, but I think very applicable to India. What Markovits says is, अमेरिका में लोग भागे हैं, ये वाली डिग्री चाहिए, वो वाला रैंक चाहिए, फिर उसके बाद prestigious job चाहिए. All of these symbols of achievement have been used by the elite to suppress the middle classes, who find elite education and these markers of prestige beyond them. But in doing so, in chasing these markers of prosperity, the elite has forgotten that if you chase markers of prestige, that by itself doesn't give you future income in a disrupted world, right? So I think India में बहुत जायज़ है ये वाला metaphor कि आपके पास कोई बहुत ही prestigious IIT, IIM, Yale, Shale, मेरी तरह LSE का डिग्री का ठप्पा हो सकता है, but अगर AI ने आपकी जॉब उड़ा दी तो उड़ा दी बॉस. AI is not going to discriminate. आपने local BCom किया या आपने कोई Ivy League फोड़ी.
Similar debate across the Atlantic in the UK, right? Where they say that the politics are run by people from Eton and these...
हाँ जी. So the fact that in India the boardrooms are no longer dominated by elite education is already a sign that the economy is moving on from elite education, but the elite are still invested in the mental construct of the meritocracy, and that's why he calls it a meritocracy trap.
Yeah. So that's first, just one book, really?
So उसके साथ अगर उसका sister book हम जो पढ़ रहे हैं is The Tyranny of Merit, by Michael Sandel. तो वो भी similar मुद्दे पे है.
Very interesting.
And then हमारे day job के लिए पढ़ रहे हैं it's a classic, marketing classic, 50 साल पुरानी है, but I still believes one of the best books written on marketing. Positioning, The Battle for Your Mind. Right? Jack Trout, Al Ries.
Recent Trout. My God, that's a classic. Yeah.
तो पुरानी किताब है, फिर से पढ़ रहा हूँ because मेरे को बहुत दिलचस्प लगता है that say a diamond is not a blob of carbon, it's not carbon condensed, it is, it's love, desire. This is what you give to the person you treasure the most, and you take and how you position the diamond in the public's mind has an enormous effect on the perceived value of the diamond.
Imagine that, and we're living in an era of lab-grown diamonds. The meritocracy trap, the tyranny of merit, and positioning by recent. I mean, recent Trout is a classic. So, guys, obviously you know about it. If you don't, then please do your googling.
So whilst I'm also reading The Meritocracy Trap, there's a book that I read pretty recently, Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. I think in the context of...
Oh, the poker player.
Yes. So it has, it goes beyond poker, I think. It has a lot of deep metaphors in it for the kind of economy that we're heading into. It's not just in India, but across the world. It would require for us to think in probabilities instead of just linear narratives. And that book does a great job of, helping you explain how
Fantastic. What do you guys do for leisure? I mean, कुछ ऐसा कुछ थोड़ा
थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है.
थोड़ा difficult. I mean, anything, any Netflix पे some your favorite comedies or whatever, or you would
I think
have
I'm
something.
not the
I'm
right
sure.
person to
yeah,
ask.
that's what
Ask the-
I'm asking. Reruns or something.
So honestly, because I've gotten into this habit of reading, it's very difficult to go onto Netflix and watch something new. At best, what I could do is just go back to some of the movies that I like, some old Bollywood rom-coms, and whenever I have some free time.
Help me with one name, maybe. If you don't want to, maybe one or two.
I like Andaz Apna Apna. I think it's the greatest movie ever made. I'm a big fan of Andaz Apna Apna.
Bachelor, like those.
क्या करेगा भैया, उसी ज़माने के
yeah,
हम.
but yeah, that's.
So I think one of my favorite movies is Kal Ho Na Ho. I mean, it ends on a very somber note, but it has a lot of deep meaning in it, and I don't know. I just get attracted towards it and keep watching it over and over again.
Did you watch it when it was re-released?
Yes.
You watched
Guilty.
it? I did too. And the biggest trivia that came out of it, was what for me? Was that Nikhil Advani, I mean the makers, Karan Johar, wanted Kareena Kapoor.
Yes.
And I'm so glad they didn't take her.
Of course.
Because I think that Preeti just got an entire different dimension to that. And, I would love for this to be a Bollywood episode. But with that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Saurabh. And Nandita from Marcellus, guys. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
At your
Thank
firm for our audience. And let's hope that, this churn or Sagar Manthan or whatever your
Sagar Manthan. अच्छा नाम है.
is not really that bad, and we managed to come out of it in the upcycle when you're here next year.
बिल्कुल.
Although you say that it goes on for 3-4 years, let's hope it's a little bit shorter.
बिल्कुल सर.
Thank you so much, folks, for listening to Paisa Vaisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.